All right, all right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A. This is CQA number 381, and I'm Jay, your host. And if you're joining us for the very first time, this is the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A. We do this coffee show most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern. So come join us if you can. And if you're watching the replay, come join us live if you want. So how's it going? Hope it's going well. So today we thought we would go over. Let's rewind. Last week, I think last Friday it was. We did some roasting, and I was actually tweaking the espresso blend. So I thought, let's go and taste this espresso and see what it's like. It's, as you can see here, it says 321 on the bag. Now that's only 5 days, so we're just kind of on the cusp from the time when we would expect the coffee to, really kind of be at the tail end of its degassing phase. Kent, good morning to you, Mom. Or Kent, good afternoon to you. Mom, good morning to you. Peter, good evening. Hi, Lo, how are you doing? And so we're going to try this coffee and see what it's like. See if I've made a masterpiece or if I have just faltered immeasurably. So let's have a look at the coffee itself. I'm going to put it here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So to me, I think when I look on the reference monitor here in the studio, I think it's a little bit darker on camera than it is in person. So just think a hair lighter the way you see it, and that's kind of what it looks like to me in person, which to me, you know me, I like for espressos more medium roasts. If you like lighter roast, that's perfectly fine. If you like darker roast, that's perfectly fine. We don't judge here. This is a non-judgmental coffee zone. We judge in secret. Okay, so let's go over here to the espresso machine. We're going to get things ready. Now, I was looking up, as I was setting up the stream, I was looking on our dates, and I was like, I don't think we've done an espresso episode since February 3rd. I think that was the last one. I was like, February 3rd, that's a long time. So the coffee that's in the grinder is a little bit old. So let's have a look. Okay, so here's our grinder. Mazda Major Auto, old battle tank. And as you can see, yeah, there's some stuff in there. There's still some beans in the hopper. We need to get those out so we can get full. It's still grind everything out of there. Just to make sure we get everything out. Pull a shot with that. Put a full shot and see how it turns out. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we're just going to take this and I'm just going to pull a shot just to see what it tastes like. It's been sitting there for well over a month. Some of it was ground in the hopper, as you see. I mean, you might not have seen it, but I did not clean up the hopper the last time we used this. So, okay, we're just going to put a lot of coffee in there. I'm just going to move it around. Now, this time I'm going to be a little more cavalier. Then I'm just going to see for me, there's too much coffee. So I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of it like that, right? Actually, there's still a amount. I think that's still a little bit too much. That's probably too much. Okay. Let's go there. Oh, that's way too much. I can feel just in the amount of tamping that I'm doing here, I can feel that there's so much more resistance or so much more volume that it's like, oh, that's too much. That's too much. This is going to be really overflowed. But however, even though it's overflowing, it feels like it's really too much water to be. That doesn't sound good. Everything gets wonky if it sits for too long. So even, like I said, even though it feels like there's too much coffee here, and typically I would expect this too much coffee feeling when I'm tamping to cause a stall in the shot. I'm thinking because there's a lot of coffee here that was ground a month ago, that's just been sitting here staling immeasurably, I think there's going to be enough flow through it. I'm thinking, well, we're going to find out. I'm going to put it in here. We flushed it out. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting a lock. There we go. Not a terrible flow. It's pretty loose. Yeah, it's pretty loose. Okay, so a lot of crema. So the crema's kind of light. Huh. Not the most reassuring, probably. So we have some crema. There's some remoteness of a darker color, somewhat. I'm going to expect it to be rather like astringent and thin. Well, let's see. Definitely thin, definitely astringent. Not a horrible experience. Not a desirable experience. Actually, there are characteristics of this that are reminiscent to me of like very light roasted espresso. I mean, it's not, by no means would we say this is what we're shooting for. George, that's what's going on. Good morning. Abuse of the taste buds firstly. Absolutely. Okay, let's go back here and let's prepare the machine for actual real usage. So we ground everything out, right? Let's double check. Yep, everything's ground out. So it's going to make sure we brush out all of this old detritus from our grinder. And then now we're going to just extract it out of here. That is one of the things with these doser grinders that you do have to like brush them to get everything out. Just get rid of all of this. I always like to have this towel here. Actually, I don't do this. This towel that I put here for this, I don't do this professionally. I only do it here. In my professional world, I don't have anything there. It's really kind of crazy. Peter says, you should be beer, not coffee. George says, I was thinking of making a mocha pot of your latest. Oh, yes, you should make it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you got. Okay, so now we got our cup. Oh, there's a couple of errant beans still in the hopper. Let's make sure we get all of that. And then now we're just going to... oh, you can't really see that, can you? Sorry. I'm going to add in some coffee there. Oh, good. That did not cause problems. Now we're going to grind just a little bit through. Okay, good. That should be enough. Sometimes I will check the grind, right, to see what I'm looking for here is like very fine powdery stuff, and then I will take it and squeeze it. And if you can see a little bit of residue on your fingers, yeah, like that, then you should be pretty close to where you want to be. All right, let's do that. Okay, let that sit for a moment. Now, we're not going to change anything about the grind setting because the last time we used this grinder, we had it at a good grind setting, and that shot wasn't too terrible. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start here, post shot, and see where do we need to go, if we need to go anywhere at all. Let me also grab a couple more cups. This is kind of the procedure that I like to do, is just to start off and just see where you are. See where you are before you make any changes, because otherwise you may end up chasing your settings. All right, that looks pretty good as far as volume. And we talked about before, the way that the coffee falls is always going to be different. So in this case, there's more coffee on this side, less coffee on this side. So we're going to start our distribution by working it around into that area. And then, I like to leave it with a little bit of mound because my thought is that the mound is going to push. And if you've got like the C+ temper, which kind of has a little bevel here, or chamfer, should I say, it's going to push it out slightly. Theoretically speaking, who knows if it really works. Again, always feeling with both opposing fingers or fingers on opposing sides to make sure that your level is correct. A little polish at the end. Make sure your wings are nice and clean. So there, you got a little, hopefully the puck looks nice and clean and smooth. Good morning to you, Paige. But George's going to have oatmeal first. Excellent. Let's just make sure we flush it one more time. And then now we're going to go in. Yeah, that one's a lot easier to insert. So maybe that's a little bit too light as far as amount of coffee. Maybe not. It's taking a while to come out. Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Now, I think we have good restriction. We have good amount of coffee. The flow looks good. Crema is developing well. And we didn't change the grinder. And this is why I kind of don't know if, like, you have all these baristas that tell you check your grind, change your grind daily. I don't think that's really necessary. Like now, I'm starting to think though it is maybe we do need to adjust it, right? Because we're talking now a totally different coffee, totally different roast date, and we are having a pretty long shot that is coming out a little bit longer. But what I want to do is I want to make a shot before I make any changes, just to see where we are. So let's have a look here. It's fairly thick looking on that shot. Let's go right to this. So we're getting some good coloration. As you can see, probably a little bit long. Let it probably run longer than I should have because we got a little bit of the blonding there. But let us tap out those bubbles. Not bad. A little bit low on volume, right? Like I would say this is more along the lines of what we might want for a ristretto type of shot. But let's have a taste and see how we like it. Huh, interesting. Like for the amount of time that it took for that shot to develop, it's fairly light. It doesn't, and I mean by it's fairly thin in that it doesn't have the heavy body. Well, that was just mostly crema that time. I gotta be a little bit mindful of how much caffeine I'm going to consume. Noe says, good morning. What do we have? We are brewing the new batch of the Espresso 99, just to see where we are, see how it is. You can see it here. A little bit of this is the roast we did on Friday. This is what we did on Friday, right? So, not bad, but I think that we could get a little bit better out of it. Perhaps now we might want to change our grind setting. We're going to go a little bit coarser instead of, but here's the thing. So when you're talking about, at least every grinder is going to be a little bit different, but I think that most espresso grinders tend to share this characteristic in that we're going to adjust the grind just a little bit. Like we may be used to working with let's say the fellow ode, right? Something like this, where you're doing these clicks, these larger motions, right? If I was to do that much motion on a Mazda, one click on a Mazda Major, because the threads are so fine, if I actually move the collar that much, it may be too much, right? So each grinder is going to be a little bit different in this respect, but I think generally speaking, most espresso grinders, especially when you're talking about professional grade grinders, they have very fine adjustments because really, in many respects, when you're working with espresso, you're really little tweaks to the grind can have dramatic results, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Of course, tailor that to the machine that you have. So let's go and have another look here. Or first of all, let's have a look at our puck. We like to look at our pucks here to see, are there any channeling in the puck? No channeling, no channeling. Everything looks nice and clean, right? Nice and solid looking. Look at that. That looks like it was made by professional. Okay, let's have a look at our cookie. Oh, yeah, that hole breaks well. It has good resistance to the break. but as you can see, uniformly dry or just uniformly wet, how you might call it, uniformly moist throughout the center of it. So that's a positive sign. We want to see things like that. I get a little bit OCD. Like I always want to wipe things, especially when I'm working. It's like you want to wipe. All right, let's go back to the thing here, even though I didn't clean that. But this is why I don't do this in professional circles. That was, like I said, I don't put this towel here in my professional life because, right? Like, so here's a great example, right? So I'll brush this off, right? I'll brush it off, right? Which I always want to do. But now I have an extra motion. I have to take this towel and get rid of it, right? Whereas if I was just here, so if this towel, right, is sitting on my, or if this grinder's on the towel, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Like, whoa, see, now I've got this extra thing happening to move it around or to just brush. Like I have a bigger brush typically, and I'll just brush everything into the trash just to keep the station clean. So while this is nice for on camera and here in a pleasant looking environment, I don't actually do this in real life. All right, so let us have a look here at our portafilter. So we're going to make sure we wipe it all out. I've been using these terry cloth towels, and I know I'm late to the game with the terry cloth world. Or not terry cloth, but these what do you call these lint-free, whatever they're called. These are really great. Like, I'm really loving them, and I'm kind of like sad that I'm late to the game with these. These are really great. These are absorption-wise. These are great. Better than terry cloth towels that I normally like, and certainly better than some of the kitchen towels that we typically use. All right, let's grind away. Oh, that's right. We're going to change our grind. So let's talk about changing your grind. Now, when you're talking about espresso machines, especially machines that are like this, where the burrs are flat, so there's actually coffee compact. When it's stopped, there's actually coffee in between the burrs. To go coarser, you're going to spread the burrs apart. When you go finer, you're going to spread them. You're going to pull them closer. Now, if you're here and there's coffee inside, and you need to close it, well, the coffee provides a lot of resistance. So it's not really. It's more difficult to adjust your finer grinding on a flat burr grinder. I mean, meaning on a horizontally mounted flat burr grinder. If they're mounted like this in some grinders, it's not as difficult. But in this case, if we tried to go by pushing it this way and going finer, we would have more resistance. So, if you have to adjust finer, you want to be quick. You want to turn the machine on and then go, and then let it run. Because otherwise, if you're too slow, then you're grinding more coffee, right? If you have 5 pounds of coffee backing you up, maybe not such a big deal. If you only have 10 to 16 ounces of your coffee, you don't want to grind more than you actually need to, right? So, but in the case of going coarser, when we're opening the burrs, spreading them apart, you don't have to run the machine because, well, you're pulling it apart rather than crushing it. So I don't know if you can see it very finely on your screens at home, but on this particular grinder, there is a bunch of numbers here, 2, 3, 4, 5. All Mazda majors will have this same feature, this numbering system. Now, a lot of people have the misnomer that I can set this grinder to this number and that grinder and the same model Mazda to that number. People always use these references of numbers. That's a little bit fraught with danger because these are reference numbers solely for the actual machine that you're using. They're not transferable because the fineness of the threading and the number of threads means that, you could have a whole revolution difference even though you're at the same reference number, which means you're getting wildly different results or disparate results. So just remember that as you're working with things. That's why when people ask me like, oh, when I'm using the what grind setting you're using? I am a little bit hesitant to say. I mean, I do say it, but I mean, because I know people like that reference, but I would not use that as an absolute reference because also, even if they're let's say theoretically on the ode, if they are all the same, if like the distances are the same because there's more limited range that you can actually set that, it may not necessarily be equivalent because also your burrs are wearing at different rates. So like if I'm someone and I have a very heavily used ode whose burrs are used and worn more, that number won't necessarily be applicable to someone with a newer burr set or even a completely different burr set, right? So something to keep in mind as you're thinking about adjusting your grind and using reference points for discussing what grind setting you're using. George says microfiber is a tip. Yes, microfiber. Thanks. I appreciate that. New batch is changing, but the beans are always changing, right? The beans are always changing. This particular batch has a little more Brazilian source beans, and this Brazilian has some raisiny characters to it. And so I always have to taste it to see how it turns out, right? Because otherwise, if people say to me later, they're like, oh, it's awesome. Oh, cool. If they say to me later, oh, that was terrible. Oh, what did you not like about it? Then I can at least hopefully find out what was wrong and figure out what they didn't like and perhaps where we made an error in our ways to correct. Okay, so let's go back now to look at the grinder. So like I said, we're going to go a little bit coarse. So in this grinder, we're going to go this way. So we're just going to go a little bit, just that little bit that I moved it, which I don't know, depending on the angle and distance of the camera, that may have been imperceptible. But it could be a major change. So now we're going to grind. So there's coffee in here, right? That's still there. So we're going to grind through that so that we can, because those are, whatever's in between the burrs are kind of at the grind that we were at. Now we need to go to the grind that we will be at, right? So let's go. Okay, that should be good. What we're going to do now, because we're going to just take all of this and get it out there. We want to try to get as much of the old coffee out as we can so that there is a grand majority of the new ground coffee rather than the old grind coffee. Okay, so that should be good. That should be good. Now we that. So you won't be reddish in color. No, not necessarily. The other one, which now I don't know which one it is now. I think it's this one. Yeah, because it was the lower. This still has reddish crema, right? It's not a question necessarily of whether it's going to be reddish or not, just more about how will the flavor turn out. Right? I hope that makes sense. All right, so clean your portafilters again. And make sure it's dry. Okay, so that looks to be fairly a good amount. Maybe it could be a little bit light. Let's go there. Now we're just going to put, so it's a little bit low here, so I'm going to push it around to get to that and fill it in. Yeah, that could be a little bit on the lighter side as far as quantity of coffee. Now, if you're at home and you're using scales to accurately measure how much coffee you are putting in your portafilter every time, you necessarily won't have those questions that I'm having right now, thinking, perhaps it's a little bit lighter. Perhaps I could have put more. I probably should have put more. But we're going to roll with it just to see what happens. Make sure you flush it out. Lock and load. Yeah, it's a little bit easy to put in. Not too easy, but easy enough to make me think that maybe it is a little bit low. But it's taking a while. So the grind is still, maybe the grind is still, yeah, the grind is still a little bit too coarse. Fine. So we're going to go a little bit more with the coarseness. Yeah, see, it's really slow. It's almost on the verge of stalling. So as you can see, by changing, this time we really did, this Brazilian coffee is a different density, bean density, I think. Also different size component. These are 15, 16 beans, and, oh yeah, man, this is very slow. Like that is just, okay, that's a little too long now. I don't even think that's going to be enough. Let's go a little bit more. Now, when I say we're going to go a little bit more, I'm going strictly on intuition now. I'm not really utilizing any true scientific method to determine how much to adjust. I'm just going strictly on intuition and, oh, I'm talking and I forgot to switch the camera. My apologies. All right. So we're strictly on intuition and yeah, okay, let's look. So here, as you can see, Naomi, it's reddish. It's very deeply reddish brown. So just by changing the coffee is not really going to necessarily affect the way that you can pull an extraction on it. You can still get nice colors out of them. But now let's see now, as you can see, the volume is very small. This is like super ristretto. So we should expect a concentration of flavors greater than we've had in the past. Oh, that's actually way better than this one. Wow. Much more intense. The initial flavor that came across my tongue was like sweetness, like a sugary, brown sugary sweetness. Interesting. Velvety mouthfeel and texture. There's kind of a raisiny kind of finish. Well, this is very interesting. Definitely velvety, powdery on the palate. Like if you imagine when I say powdery, imagine it like eating cocoa powder without, if you eat cocoa powder, it's all that. Because, suddenly your mouth is like super dry because it sucked all the moisture. But imagine the texture without that super dryness, right? That's soft. That's kind of that's kind of the mouthfeel. Oh, that's very different. That's very different than this first shot. Like this, very light, not very fulfilling. This is a completely different expression. Like this is, honestly, it probably should not be called Espresso 99. Because it's actually very different. It's very, but not in a necessarily bad way. It's just so different. It's kind of beautiful on its own. Oh my! We can do this on a regular basis. This would be a nice. If I was to move the mantle to a new style, I would be all right with that. I would be all right with that. Paige says, I've never pulled any Ristretto shots. Maybe I should start doing that as part of the demo. Ristretto really is kind of a choice thing, I want to say. I guess that's probably the best way, meaning that like we're getting Ristretto now strictly by happenstance, not because I'm necessarily trying to do it, but what you want, if that's the case, you want to use similar quantities of coffee, but just go finer on your grind, right, to create more resistance and slower resistance. You're getting more of that. Not everybody likes Ristretto shots. This is, God, that is. I know that I'm the guy that made it, and I know this is the show that I'm on, right? But gosh darn it, that's one of the better shots of espresso I've ever had. And I make a lot of bad espresso. That's actually, I'm actually surprised at how much I'm enjoying that. Let's see if we can do it. Well, we're not going to be able to do it again because I've already changed the grind twice. Right? I don't know if you can see that over there. I did change it twice. Let's go back here and look. Peter says Ristretto is the best, the double shot. Oh, yes. I mean, I don't really pull that many, right? Because here's why we don't pull that many. And the reason is because to do a Ristretto, it takes a change. To do it properly, you want to make a change. You want to change the grind to get like where we were with this shot, really nice and fine, powdery grind, so that you get a lot more resistance. But you're still getting flow, and you're kind of running that. You're kind of running that fine line between getting a lot of resistance to your flow, so you're extracting as much flavor as you can with just a little bit less, with just a little bit of water. but you're also like toying around with stalling, right? Just outright too much, too fine, too much coffee, and stalling the whole machine. And in a commercial setting, the reason we don't really do ristrettos, or if places that do ristrettos, typically make the choice to do ristrettos only, right? And this is because if you set up for regular double shot espressos, in order for you, if somebody comes in, I would like a ristretto, you're like, now we have to do it properly. You have to change the grind, which means you have to kind of stop, readjust your station, pull the shot, serve it, and then readjust back to your normal flow. And that burns a lot of time. And if you're in a busy cafe environment, you're like, oh, good Lord, this is great. So what cafes will typically do, or at least I would say more capable baristas or cafes would do, in the case of someone that wants to have a ristretto, and if presuming the barista or the shop is willing to accommodate that, what they'll do instead is probably just go. So if your normal dose is 18 grams and everything's set up for double shot 18, you may push to 21, 22, 23 grams or more to create that greater resistance, slower flow, and extra flavor, right? So it's something, depending on where you're going, it may not necessarily be the best way to order an espresso, right? If you go to a shop that really is into ristrettos and that's what they do, that's probably the best place to go if you want to explore. And if you want to do it at home, you should just keep in mind you can keep the same quantity of coffee, just go finer, just finer. Nate F is with us. What's going on, Nate? How are you? Welcome to the show. Are you strictly espresso, or do you use other methods as well? We are open to all methods of coffee making. If you join us on our live streams, or if you just look at the other live streams, you'll see that there's all kinds of coffee making going on here. We try everything. We're open to trying. Well, okay. We're open to trying most of anything. Like, we don't do the glass AeroPress only because like it costs $150. It's like, I'm not spending $150. I got like 4 AeroPresses. The last thing I want is another one. Babe says, did I regularly do pour overs? Yeah, we do pour overs. We do, like I said, there's a bee house right here. Huh? The bee house. What else do we have within hand range? Nothing. The bee house. The bee house is it. And then we boil our own water. And we like to use local ingredients as much as possible, like this honey from Sawmill Charlie's, who's in Falston, Maryland. He's got a YouTube channel if you want to watch. If you like bees, if you're into bees, look up Sawmill Charlie on YouTube. He's my sawyer. Like, I buy lumber from this guy, and like he was selling bee honey, and I was like, I'm going to use this on the show one day. And as I'm preparing the show notes, I'm looking it up online. I was like, Sawmill Charlie. Sawmill Charlie has a YouTube. I was like, my sawyer has a YouTube channel about bees. I was like, that's just kind of funny. It's just funny to me. Like, he does nothing with like his profession is lumber, sawmilling. Like, he's got big 4-foot, like, imagine like a circular saw that's 4 feet. The saw blade is 4 feet. And it doesn't have a guard. It just spins and they push these wood through. You're like, oh my God, man, that is like so, like, you could easily be sliced in half. But he has no interest in doing YouTube for sawmill. I was like, dude, this is what you do for a living. Like, you're an expert in this field. Why don't you do a YouTube channel? I said, well, I love bees, he's kind of an expert in bees too. So, but he's got a live stream every Friday night, and I'm like, it just comes across my feed because I subscribe, and I was like, look at this guy, so hilarious. Nate says that my primary method is a Kalita Wave Dutchie model. Ooh, what is the Dutchie? Is that still the flat one? This morning I had a wash geisha from Wilmer Castillo, roasted by Black and White in Raleigh, North Carolina. Floral and black tea dominant. Oh, lovely, lovely. You should join us later this week because we're going to be tasting geisha this week. A beautiful geisha that last week we roasted to a dark black. Dark roasted geisha is going to be our jam this week. That's our thing. I'm just waiting for the right amount of time after degassing for us to get the full experience of it. But That's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're going to be doing dark roasted geisha. Dark roasted geisha. I know it's sacrilege. Most people think, I'm sure I posted about it on my Instagram. I think some people are upset. And then I don't have respect for the geisha. And I don't. All right. And that geisha comes from Nicaragua de la Bastilla. So here's our puck. And it's really tight. That's really tight. So Paige, if you want to do that, you make sure you get, I would just say get the, make it tight, right? Just fill it. Yeah, so good compaction, good cooking, like nice, like again, nice and dry over all throughout. The puck, good. Let this up here. And then let's have a look here. There's a slight amount of, so remember, we were pulling the shot for really a long time, right? So typically with a regular double shot, you don't think that, oh, that long shot, we're going to see a lot of residual oils indicating over extraction, but there's like a slight amount of residual oil here, indicating we were just right on the cusp. We just stopped right as we started to go into over extraction. So, textbook wise, this should have been not a good shot, but textbook wise, we made a shot that delivered all the flavor possible out of the coffee at the moment that it did, and it turned out to be excellent. Like I know I'm tooting my own horn here, but it's like it's very rare for me to have a coffee like that, even though I do this. Devin says, "Oh, you know about it, Devin. You know. All right, let's go here. Speaking of Devin, we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen Dev. Dev probably is sleeping for a change because it's 4:30 in the morning, and the guy's up at 4:30 in the morning hanging out with us. I'm like, what are you doing, man? It's too early yet. All right, so we're going to grind. I changed the grind, but I didn't eject the coffee. So let's eject the coffee. Right? Is that right? This is what you don't want to do. You don't want to lose track of what you're doing because look, I'm going to have to waste that whole batch of coffee now. You don't want to do that. Mainly, just for the love of coffee, but also because you don't want to. You're buying coffee. If you're buying coffee by the pound, and a pound at a time, you don't want to burn. That was probably a good 30, 40 grams, right? So that's quite a lot. That's almost 10% of your pound. So this is probably, don't be like me babbling too much between shots so that you don't know what happens. Okay, so we've adjusted the grind quite dramatically. So I'm expecting to see, I'm kind of sad because now we won't see that shot that we had just had, and it won't be as rich. It won't be as full. It won't have that same texture. I don't think. Okay, that's probably good. A little bit low here, right? And we're just going to come sweep it around. Just come in there like this. I'm really being quite tight with how much I'm dosing. I probably should have dosed a little bit more. Let's see what happens. Push this down. Oh no, maybe it's all right. I can usually feel when I press down, I can usually feel like if we're pretty good as far as quantity of coffee. Again, just make sure you wipe off everything so that it's nice and clean. It doesn't. You want to make sure you clean off your wings because it just jams up in there. And then you want to make sure this is clean because it could prevent you from getting a nice tight seal. And especially if you're like this machine and you haven't replaced the head gasket, it's getting more brittle. The more brittle it gets, the harder it is to make a seal. So you want to always just do what you can to help. Lucky, baby. We're going to go to a tulip shaped cup because I'm out of the other cups. Oh, look at this. This is still taking a long time. And we we did a pretty dramatic. Oh yeah, look at that. That is very long time. We're still. It makes me wonder. Maybe we need to pull one more shot at this grind setting because it doesn't seem like we've gotten much progress. Actually, looking at this, I think we got worse. I probably put more. I put more coffee this time than the last one, and that has now come to bite me in the butt. Look at that. I mean, we're at a minute now of extraction, and almost nothing has come out. Well, not almost nothing, but we've got like half of the flow, or 3/3 of the flow. Okay, stop that. Let's stop here. Oh, look at that. The super ristretto. Okay, let's go over here. But there you are, Paige. So it does have the color, right? It's still the color. There's no bubbling, but really super concentrated. Nate says the dachi is still flat bottom, but it is handmade and hand glazed. Ooh, that sounds awesome, man. From Kurasu in Kyoto. Oh, nice. I have a Kalita Wave, and it's cool, the stainless, but that sounds really like worthwhile acquisition. George wants to know: will there be pitchforks and torches as you reveal how you roasted the geisha? That's because we took a torch to the geisha. And George says that Nate, that sounds beautiful. You should take a snapshot of your setup. And has another. Yeah. We would love to, if you want, shoot a video of your home setup, and we will include it in our future video. I do a video. I'm starting a video series where we're asking our community members to make short videos, 2-3 minutes of their home setup, so that people can see. We want to share them. There's one video already on the channel that came right before Christmas on that. All right, let's have a taste. So the previous one had really beautiful cocoa powder, sweetness, like intense sweetness in the beginning. This has a more reserved sweetness. It's brighter than the previous one, and I think that's probably because we loosened up the grind a little bit. It's good. It's nice. It's intense. It's got good depth. The raisiny has become a little sweeter, but also a little bit sharper. All right, let's anything we should be checking with our puck. Puck looks pretty good. We're not going to worry too much about that. Move quickly. We're going to do one more shot because what we want to do is we want to see. Oh, and here's something that this is what I was saying before. Like with the previous one, even though it was a ristretto, we didn't have anything clean. We didn't have anything remaining. I think this could be still under extraction because we really didn't have that much volume. So this is, like I've said before, these residual oils in the bottom of your basket will be either due to under extraction, over extraction. It's up for you to decide which one it really is. And I'm saying it's under extraction because we really didn't see any blonding here. If we saw some blonding and we had this much oils, then we would think that it was over extraction. But since we don't have any blonding, we do have a lot of oils. Meaning that we still have a lot of flavor left to extract into here. And perhaps that cocoa powder body and finish, or about cocoa powder texture, was still in the coffee. It hasn't come out yet. But of course, these are just theories that we're working with here, not necessarily known the true science. So let us go and make another run. And like I said, we're not going to change the grind setting this time like we did the last. Mainly because I'm not sure if we've truly settled into this grind setting, because the amount that I moved the adjuster was pretty dramatic. And for us to have this small change doesn't seem commensurate with the amount of adjustment. So we want to make sure, and anytime you make adjustments to your grind, you really want to give it 2 or 3 shots to see and make sure that change has been seeded into your set, into the coffee basically, and you're really getting it that way. Now I realize that if you're at home and you're like making a shot for yourself or whatever, that may not necessarily be possible, especially if you're using something like this. And honestly, if you're a home user, while you can get something like these monsters at a great price nowadays, especially in the used market, and they're bulletproof grinders, like they're just like battle tanks. And I have beaten the heck out of some of these, and they just never stop. They just never die. They just grind and grind consistently and always go and go and go and go. The only problem is that if you're only making one or two, you've got a lot of space here where the coffee can just be sitting, right? Just sitting day in, day out. And when coffee's ground, especially that's coffee that's in here, that's ground, it's staling, right? It's always going to be staling. So if you're pulling a lot of shots, it could be really great. Or if you understand that that's going to be what's happening, and you find it to be acceptable, that could be a great thing. But if you want to have like the most pristine coffee experience every time, right, then perhaps this might not be the ideal choice, because you want to probably go with something like the grinders that are designed for the consumer market, that are going to be quite nicely done, quite expensive. But the thing is with those is that they're designed for single dosing. So if you need to grind 1 serving a day, 2, 3 servings a day, perfect. Those are probably going to be much better. And if you were to take this and put this in your kitchen, like I probably do, this setup here with the hopper, or the full height of the hopper, is too tall for most people's kitchen setups, especially if you have a cabinet, an overhead cabinet. There's not enough space on your counter, between the top of your countertop and the bottom of your cabinets, to fit something like this. You can get these to fit if you get there is a smaller hopper. So that will work. But again, it goes back to the question of whether or not it's going to be right for what you want to do with it. Like, certainly if you have this, it's going to be awesome, right? Like, if you just want to have, I got badass power, then it's great. And that's really, when it comes to my world, it's all about badass. I just want to have power, right? Just to flex, right? If I had my druthers, I'd put a Lumberzoku Linea 2-group in my kitchen, not because I'm going to make espresso every day, probably almost never, mainly because I don't want to clean the mess, but just because it'd be awesome. You're like, nah, that's awesome. So when people come over, they're like, whoa, dude, you got a 2-group espresso machine in your kitchen? Like, hell yeah. Nelly says, Super Ristretto would be nice with milk. Yes. Nate says, I'll upload a picture to Imager now. Oh, excellent. Let us know. Stop fondling a grinder. Why do you guys always think in such ways? Like, why can can a man not just be, can a man just not wipe his grinder without somebody having to make some kind of comment that suggests something more pleasurable? Why is that the case? Paige says, I've thought about grabbing a Mazda Mini. The Mazda Minis are really good. Like, those are really great grinders, and they're really small, really ideal for someone that wants to put them in a home situation. And a lot of coffee shops will use the Mazda Mini as their decaf grinder, right? The only thing about the Mazda Mini compared to, let's say, the Major or the Jolly, which is the one in between the two, is that it's just a slower grinder, just grinds slower paced, right? It doesn't. And of course, it's not designed to be to meet the same kind of volume as the Major or even the larger Rober, right? Which actually, I never liked the Rober. Like, I know a lot of my compatriots in the coffee business, for a while, they were all about Rober. And I was like, why do I want this big monstrosity here? They're like, it's a better quality grind. I don't think so. But then again, it cost $3,000. I was like, I'm not spending $3,000 on that. That's crazy. Peter says, milk is for baby yaks. Nate says he's got the 1Z Presso K Plus, Time More Black Mirror Pro, Dutchy Kalita Wave, and the Fellow Stag EKG Pro. Ooh, nice. Nice stuff. George says, sounds very cool. Are you repeating the same process every day? And the Matt Geek is with us. Good morning to you, Matt Geek. How are you doing? Drinking 8 o'clock coffee, an upgrade from 4. Excellent, excellent. As long as you're enjoying it, that's what we celebrate here. Okay, so let's go back. Oh, so like I said, we're going to pull another shot. So let's go and pull this other shot. And like I said, we're not going to go make any changes right now because we want to see, will there be any changes based on the coffee getting seated more in the... Okay, so this time we dose. Oh, that's dosing a lot more. So we're going to lose some of that coffee. Okay, there we go. That's probably better. Now I'm just going to make sure that that's probably too little. That's probably too little this time. Well, let's go see. Yeah, it could be too little. Flip it off. If you're worried about, like, consistency, this is probably an ideal time when you would want to weigh your grinds. Yeah, see, that went in really easily. So it makes me think that I put too little coffee. But we'll see. All right, that came out in a nice amount of time. So it looks like we got good flow. Looks like we're in a position with the quantity of coffee that I put in, the size of the grind, looks like we're getting, okay, now we're getting a little bit of shaky. Stop. Actually, that looks, on a theoretical level, that looks fairly nice. Let's have a look here. How does that look? A little bit of bubbles, a little bit of burbujas here on the sides. Not bad looking. Not bad looking. Let's have a taste. A little more orange peel. Body is not as thick. There's a slight amount of the cocoa powder, just kind of riding under all that orange. Certainly not as sexy as the first Espresso shot that we had. But I think that but I think it could be more. It should be more. And I think part of that is because we need a little more coffee in the portafilter. Nate says that at the office, I generally use the Kalita. Will occasionally use the AeroPress when I want something with more body. Oh, nice, nice. And Nate says that at home on the weekends, I generally use a mocha pot or French press. Hey, see, everybody, when you're at home, you just want to, like, put it down and just be like, I'll come and check on it in 3 minutes. I love that. That's exactly what I do most of the time. Although I mostly use French press. Actually, I don't really use French press anymore because I don't like to clean the French press. I don't like to clean. Like, I really don't like to clean if I don't have to. So I tend to go with a French press-y kind of drink, coffee, mostly in the form of a clever, because then I can just, as you know, it's like French press. You just steep it all, and then you open the valve, and it all flows through. And then you take the bag of your filter coffee, you throw it away, and you rinse it out. Done. Like, I don't have to sit there and scrub out the French press and clean the mesh, because I get a little bit like psycho. Because for me, like, if I take the Chambord, I want to take it, I want to unscrew the French press, right? I want to take the 3 pieces apart. I want to clean it all out so that when I look at it, like, especially that part that has the perforations and the coil around it, like, I don't want to see that have like any. I want it to seem nice and polished. I'm like, this is why I should not. This is why I stopped using the French press mainly. So, because there's a psychosis that comes out of it. But I'm not saying you should stop using it. I think you should totally continue on. Nate says, do you usually not weigh your dose and output? No, not normally, especially, definitely not the output. Like, honestly, I think the output measurement is a little bit ridiculous. Right? Like, for example, when I was judging coffee barista competitions, right? You have all these competitors. After a while, suddenly the whole trend was to give us these details: 18 in, 36 grams out, 18 in, 40 out, whatever it is, right? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. but are you correlating that to something better, like to the flavor? And what does it mean to me? Right? What is it, whether I'm the person drinking the coffee or I'm the person that's, reviewing the coffee, what does it mean to me to know how much volume you get out? Because here's the thing, for me, what I believe in, what I follow is the flow. I'm always looking at the flow, right? As the flow comes out of your portafilters, it's going to come out, hopefully it's coming out slow and thick and syrupy, it's coming down. And then as the shot progresses, it gets smoother and a little bit more flowy, a little more faster, right? Like as though you're taking like honey, right? It comes out really gloopy at first, right? And then as you heat the honey, let's say you're heating the honey, it comes out, smoother, right? And then there's a point, right, where if you look at the flow, you'll see like sometimes if you have an open spout, bubbles start to appear. But what happens on the stream is that the stream starts to flutter. It'll usually do like this, like just real quick like that. That is the coffee telling me that we are done. We are done. The coffee is saying that I have given you all of my goodness that I can. What will follow is nothing good. Right? And you can also see that in the actual crema, right? So if you're watching that happen, right, and you're watching this flutter happen, typically that's when you'll also start to see the formation of blonding in your crema, especially if you have crema that's kind of brown or reddish brown, you're going to start to see that blonding happening. And this is the coffee telling you to stop. It's telling you to stop no matter where you are, right? Like if you put 18 grams in, you say 36 grams out. But if you're only at 22 grams and it's doing that, it means it's done. By going to 36 or whatever someone has, whatever you're trying to ascribe to, it matters not. Right? You're just getting stuff that you don't want. You're getting less. I believe you're getting less results than ideal results. Now, the key, and this is true and so let's say that one parameter, 18 and 36 out. In my world of making espresso, we would teach baristas that we want to have them meet certain parameters, right? Like 1.5 to 2 ounces in 25 to 29 seconds with our coffee. That's what we designed it to perform. That's how we designed it to perform. However, we still taught them that this and the coloration overrides it all. Everything overrides it. The key now as a barista is how do you, if our standards are 1.5 to 2 ounces, 25 to 29 seconds, or if your thing is 36 grams, how do you tailor your shot to meet that? So the challenge wasn't necessarily just to pull the shot and have this and stop whenever it wiggled. The real challenge was to understand all of that and craft your espresso so that wiggle happened within the parameter that we're seeking, that 1.5 to 2 ounces between 25 to 29 seconds. So if you had it happen at 27, perfect. Then chances are it's perfect. Where if it happened outside of that, it may not necessarily be as great as we would like, but it will be as good as it possibly could be, right? And so that's why I don't really pay attention to the output. Now, when it comes to the input, as far as like weighing, like certainly you can get more consistent results by watching, by weighing it specifically. And at Spro, we actually teach weighing. So all of our baristas have to weigh. But however, in a professional environment, for you to sit there with a scale, right, and every shot to sit there, it does take more time. And if you're in a busy cafe environment making lattes, it's not necessarily going to do you a lot of good to increase the wait time to do that. But really, if you have well-trained baristas that are well-practiced, and once everything's set up, like I can train baristas to deliver 21 grams, which is our standard, 21 grams almost every time. And in order for them to become a barista, they have to pretty much reach that level of mastery, or not necessarily mastery, but at least release that level of craft in order to do that. Like one of our tests to move on is that after the barista sits there and learns how to dose 21 grams, their pass or fail test is you must dose 10 times. and it must be consistent. So let's say you're unnumbered. You've done 21 grams 9 times, and your 10th one is 20 or 22. You start again. So so we try to build that in because we don't want to give the time to like weighing, which depending on what you believe, that may seem offensive, but sometimes in a professional world there is compromises that must be made. Right? Not always going to be perfect, especially in a bar situation where you're working on the line. Now, if we're talking about something, let's say like a kind of like tasting menu, kind of like sit down thing where you're like formally, tasting a range of coffees where everything must be presented in a certain way, and you have that time, right? Like you're having a guest come in and they're paying whatever amount of money to be with you for the next 2 hours to try different coffees. Then you have plenty of time and leeway to really work on to the nth degree to make sure that everything is just exactly right. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. Peter says, I broke my French press today too. Oh, that's so, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Like you break so many of your tools are broken. I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, it's probably been a year since they sent you the broken switch, right? Still, we'll take a moment. George says that, Nate, I typically do French press on Sunday AM too, but often that means a change of beans as well. Oh, nice. And the Mac Geek says that Valentina automatic espresso machine is beautiful. This Valentina, been a really great performer. I've had this since 2002, so it's 23 years old. And it still is performing well. Now, granted, I don't beat up on this machine a lot. Like it doesn't get used. Lately, it doesn't get used unless we're on the show. And we don't. The last time I think we did an espresso episode was a month ago. So it's not being pounded on every day, but it's still in great condition. When I bought this originally, I used this as my primary machine in a shop. So this was being used to pull shots day in, day out, refilling it constantly. And, 22 years on, still a solid machine. So this is why I am a proponent of like buying nice quality machines if you can. Like this one at the time in 2002 cost me $1,500, which isn't too far from the price today, I think. They still make this model. So if you buy nice quality machines, you can expect to have it for quite a long time. So just something to think about, but I do love it. I think it's a fabulous, fabulous machine. Peter says, I was using it for frothing my matcha tea. Oh yeah, that pounding action. It's always a bad thing when you're pounding things. George says, Peter, you're having a rough morning. Did you break your French press carafe because you threw it? Anton says, I already broke 5. Oh my gosh. But also maybe it brings good coffee. I think it does. Peter says he's actually pretty chill. Nate says, I came here primarily because of your Coffee Fanatics in Japan video. That is one of my favorite. Oh, yeah, that's my favorite cafe. That's the Cafe del Hombre video. Like I have another one that I shot the last time I was there in 2023, which is, it's taking me forever to get these videos done. But it doesn't come across in the Coffee Fanatics. It doesn't come across much in that video, but I do like cigars. And I always love, because the owner or the original owner, Ichiro Sakaguchi, was an avid pipe smoker. And of course, the culture for Kisaten is cigarette smoking. And so I would go there for years. I went there smoking cigars. I'm like smoking cigars and coffees, and it was so fabulous. But then during the pandemic, the whole Olympic thing came and laws changed in Tokyo and they became a little more restrictive. And so when the first day I arrived back at Lombre, right, I haven't seen these guys in a couple of years. And Fujihiko-san, he's the owner now. After his uncle passed away, he took over the business. First thing he says to me is like, no more smoking. I was like, I used to have nice cigars and coffee. God. It's my favorite place. My favorite place for coffee. It's my home away from home. Like that's really my home. Like if I think about a cafe that I go to, that's kind of my home shop. That really is the place. Like since 2007, I've been going there quite frequently. And when I'm in Tokyo, I try to be there almost every day because it's like just a great place to hang out. But I got to be honest, like it's not as without a cigar, it's not as awesome. Well, it's still awesome. It's just I just liked it so much more. Like after because I didn't know that I didn't know cigarettes were okay for a couple of years. And then one day I think it was like 2015. I went in and I was there. And I was like, and I saw somebody smoking a small cigar. And I had my cigar. I said, Daijobu? I think it's like, oh, thank you, God. Anyway. It's such an incredible dedication to quality. Yeah, and it's so. And since you said you went to pick up your Kalita from Japan, I imagine that you've been to a lot of these places. You must, so you're very familiar with the beautiful craftsmanship that a lot of these kisatens have. It's worth exploring. If those of you who haven't been to Japan and who like coffee and you want to see something different, there is a whole world of coffee culture that is very similar to what we know out here in the West. This whole beautiful third wave specialty coffee thing that's precious and all that. But then there's this whole like indigenous coffee culture to Japan that is very different than what we may think is beautiful. I think the Kisaten culture is incredible. I love it. I can't get enough of it. Like when I go to Japan, as I'm touring around Tokyo, like there's places you want to check out. Like, I've been to Glitch. I've been to a bunch of places, but I typically will go there because my friends want to go. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll go check it out. But there's also part of it that's like, I'm wasting my time here. Like I'm up to here in specialty coffee. I'm up to here in bright, light coffees in the Nordic style. No offense, Ken. But, I'm up to here in it. I don't need to travel somewhere and be more into it. I'm like, I need to go somewhere else. Especially when there's a different indigenous culture of coffee. Like when I went to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, my friends were like, where do you want to go? I was like, dude, I want to only see the kopitiams. I don't want to see anything else. I don't care about anything else. Right? There's a couple places I would like to see now. But, you get the point. You get the point, right? Peter says, I don't think I've seen that video. It's one of the early videos on the channel. Like I released it. I released it back maybe in 2021, but I actually shot the video in 2007. And I edited the video with the perspective of being there in 2007 rather than having been there many, many times over the years. Right? I tried to make it from that perspective because I shot a lot of footage of our first visit there. My first visit to Cafe del Hombre in 2007, my mentor, John Sanders, we were there for the World Barista Championship. We were doing machine maintenance for La Marzocco. This is coincidentally the World Barista Championship that James Hoffman won. And so we were all there, and John was like, dude, I got to take you to this place. You got to see this place. I was like, what place is this? It's a coffee place. Let's go. And I was like, all right. The guy's like 90 years old. I was like, 90 years old? That's crazy. And he went. I was just totally blown away. Now, I wonder, like, if I had gone to another place like Chate Hato or something like that, would I think that place was incredibly above the rest? I don't know. But I think that Lombre, because you know what, the owner, Ichiro Sekiguchi, he's a fanatic. The guy is a fanatic. Like, he's not someone that would be like, okay, well, this ACF cup is good. I'm going to use it. He would be like, I'm not happy with this cup. I'm going to have someone make me a cup. And so the cups you get there, a lot of them he designed. Or like like you get the Haria. Like say we have this pouring kettle, right? Okay, this is a nice pouring kettle. Good balance, nice flow. Well, this guy, unhappy. Like he's just like, this is rubbish, right? It doesn't meet my needs. So he goes to another company and has this made. Right, this is what he thinks is the greatest. And I must say, this Pelican tip, which you can buy from Kalita. Kalita makes a version of this. This is not made by Kalita. I thought it was made by Kalita. Somebody pointed out in the comments that it's not made by Kalita. There's another company that makes it. I forgot who it is. But the way they designed this spout allows you to control the drip, like incredible, like little teeny tiny drips. Like I'm not good enough control it in the way that, let's say, like Fujihiko-san does. Like he's like, I'm like, I haven't done it enough, right? And also the thing about this is that unlike this that has a Bakelite handle that insulates your hands, this is all steel, right? Just enameled steel. So after a while, especially if you're like they do, they put it on a heat source, like they put it on a natural gas flame to heat it. This gets hot, so you got to have a towel. You'll have a towel, right? They'll have a towel, and you got to have this towel to protect your hand, and you have to stabilize it, and you have to control. And they're like, like if you watch the video, he's like, oh, like. And I gotta say, when I was watching over the years, I'd go there and I'd be watching, and I was like, and Fujihiko-san has this style where he reaches a point where he's brewed the coffee and he flicks the nil drip away, and I was like, how does he? And he does it every time. I'm like, God, he does it all the time, and he gets like the same amount of quantity of coffee. And I don't know why I'm like so impressed by this, because working in the field, I realized that after you do something for thousands and thousands of times, you get a feel for it. You understand where it is. But every time I watched it, I was like, how does he do that? Like, that's amazing. And so Nakanishi, who was his like apprentice, I was like, one day, finally, years later, I said to him, how does he know when to stop? And Nakanishi looked at me like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, are you foolish? He showed me the pot, and there's little graduations etched on, and they're really light. They're really hard to see. Like, even on mine, I can barely see it, right? Little graduations that show like 50, 100 milliliters. And I was like, I was like, of course, gosh. What? Anyway, let's make this next shot and see what happens. We're going to pull another shot. This time I might add a little more coffee. Try to see if we get a little more coffee, or see if we can fall into a little more of a rhythm with the coffee, and see what that changes to the shot. Let's have a look here. Our puck in good condition. I'm gonna knock it out. Oh, look at that. No residual oils. Or very little. So we've stopped the shot at a good moment. Let's go here. Okay, one more time. Because we really want to see how well seeded is this. Okay, so there we've got this much coffee, which I'm going to think, there's a part of me that feels like that it could be just right, or just a tiny bit, a lot. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, this time it felt fairly well, so I'm just going to kind of maneuver it around. We're going to try to keep as much of it as we can, so we're going to have a little bit more restriction maybe. Oh yeah, that's actually pretty good. That feels pretty good. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, that's a good amount, because I can feel it. I can feel the resistance as we're putting the port filter into the brew head, and it's taking a little bit long. Yeah, now it's finally coming out. So that was a good 8 seconds, 9 seconds to come out. So we're definitely pushing into that ristretto phase or style. We're not getting a lot of flow. So again, if we're going to use this much coffee, we'd probably want to come out and loosen up the grind just a little bit. We won't do that today, but we're going to just see. We're going to let it run. Okay, we're starting to see a little bit of the blonding, so let's stop there. We're back to the ristretto shot. Even though we changed the grind quite significantly, I'm surprised that we're still in this range for shot pulling. Look at that. That's fairly nice crema-wise. Knock out the bubbles. I always like to knock out the bubbles, right? Like especially if we're serving it to guests, we want to knock out the bubbles. And especially if we're serving to guests, here's something that, I know it's very difficult not to avoid this, but see this little drip here? That irritates me to no end. I will serve it like this, as long as there's no drips on the outside. We will make sure that if there's any drips on the outside, we will wipe it with a nice wet cloth to make sure that, because it's going to dry pretty fast on the outside because of the warmth. So we want to make that clean. it's, you know, I don't want to take a towel and like wipe on the inside of it, right? Because that may be look unsanitary. So, but nothing drives me more. That drives me insane. That does. Like I hate to serve it that way, but there's sometimes no choice. All right, so let's have a taste, and we're back to that sweetness. With this coffee, with this ristretto, with this version of the Espresso 99, the March 21st version, when pulled in this condition, there's an initial burst of sweetness on the palate, and then more of a kind of like cocoa powder texture without the dryness. This is more like the first shot we did today. Not as good though. Like it's a little bit brighter than the first one, but definitely more complex than the one that preceded this. Let me ask, are you using the 21-gram basket or the standard? I'm using the VST double shot basket. Let me clean this. Oh, yes, you can see here maybe we didn't let it run long enough. I thought we saw some blonding, but maybe we didn't let it run long enough because there's a lot of oils left behind there. Let me just strip that up for a second. So I'm using a VST basket. I think it's VST. I'm pretty sure it's VST. But there was a period where we bought all VST baskets, replaced everything. And based on the hole pattern in this, I do believe it is the VST. And so this is a double shot. It's the VST double shot basket, and it's really what double shots are supposed theoretically, 14 to 18 grams. We put 21 grams in it. That's really our goal. It's 21 grams. We've always done that. Like you don't need. They do have triple shot baskets that are really deep. We never bought those. I probably bought one at some point just to try it out, and then I realized that I didn't like it. So just a double shot basket. And typically baskets in modern times are underrated. They can hold more than they theoretically should. Nate says, coffee maniacs, not fanatics. Yes. Gotcha. Nate says, I wish I had known about it when I went to Japan in March 2023. But my last trip was in May to June 2023. The main coffee places I hit up while there were Leaves in Tokyo and Kurasu in Kyoto. I mean, I've never been to Leaves. Actually, I haven't heard about Leaves until this very moment. Ken says, none taken. I guess somebody was like, attacking you, Ken. It's all right. Sorry that your French press broke. George says, I've always loved that kettle, but you don't use, this one, I love this kettle. I actually use this more. I use this more at the Roasteries Cafe. Like this is what we use all the time at the Roastery Cafe. Or this one and the smaller one from Kalita. This is the Kalita version, which I think is pretty much the same spout-wise, because it's the spout. But this is like a 1 liter kettle, is it right? 1 liter. It's big. 1.7 liters, I think it is. Where this is maybe 1.4 liters. Or I don't know. But because of the weight, because of the size, this is a little bit easier to maneuver, especially since I don't have the mastery that I would like to have. Now, one of the problems with these type of iron, steel, enameled pots is if you drop them, it flakes the enamel off, and it's always like the bane of my existence. Plus, these are the real Lambre ones, and I'm always kind of like shy to use them. I'm like, I always have like water too. But as we move on, we'll use them more. Mac Geek says, I love the bright red water kettle. I just use a basic electric kettle, but it's difficult to use for pour. And I think it's all right if you want to get, if you want to start something a little bit more budget friendly. I really like, and I don't like a lot of Harios. Well, I can't say that anymore. There was a time when I really was kind of like down on Hario, except for the kettles. The Buono kettle, the one like this. See, Nate, I got all these stuff hanging around here. So it's not just espresso. So this is what we used for many years at Spro. Like this is our primary kettle. And then probably around 2018, we changed to this just because I like the new style. And I think you can get these fairly reasonably priced. These are awesome. Like either of these two are excellent. What I like about them, like this is hard to get. Like you kind of have to go to Japan to get it, right? This, I don't know if it exists in America. Like I had to go to Japan to get these things. But these you can get here. And the spouts are the same. So they got the same chip. So this allows you to control your pour very well. So let's just take this and we'll put the lid on here just so we can simulate. But you can control. It takes practice, but you can control it. I haven't done this in a while, I guess. And one of the things to also remember is that I'm also working at a 42-inch bar top instead of like a 22-inch work top or maybe 30-inch work top. So when you're working on a regular tabletop or work top, you can, like here, I have to hold my arm up here to control it. So I'm having, the ergonomics are poor. So you really have a harder time controlling your flow. But if you're actually down below, right, like this, actually I'd probably be pouring like this. It's a lot easier. I mean, I'm more practiced at that height. So, but if you're looking for budget-friendly kettles, these are great. And to me, it's always about, like you can find, if you go to Temu or something like that, I'm sure you can find for like $6, $7. But this one I think is a known quantity. The angles that they have for the handles, as well as the angle for the spout, the way that it pours, I really like. Now, I know Nate mentioned, I think it was Nate that said that he has the Stag EKG. I kind of hate the Stag EKG. And for the only reason is that, the main reason is that they put a jiggler restrictor. They put a restrictor in this spout so that you can only pour at whatever, at a predetermined flow rate, no matter how steep you want to pour, you want to angle it. So like sometimes I want to pour like that, right? But sometimes I want to pour like that, right? So I like the versatility and the lack of versatility that's inherent in the design of the Stag just infuriates me. I get mad when I use them. Like this is like the worst. So, but it all depends on what you're looking for, right? And so what I do here is that we have these kettles, and I don't really at the roaster we sometimes use a heated electric kettle, but I just use a butane burner and a big old, I don't know what size is this, maybe 5-liter kettle. So you can get these fairly inexpensively but you already got a boiler, so that's not a big deal. And then I just here I'm using just a butane burner from the Asian market. So $20 the Asian market, you get the refills for like $7 each. But I like it because it allows me versatility, and also here and behind the bar at home, I'm also limited in available power without having to run extension cords from all over the house. So I have the espresso machine, the grinder's plugged in. Instead of using an induction burner, which we normally use at the shops, I just use this cartridge butane burner, so it makes it a little bit easier on the power consumption. Naomi says, I'm going to try 21 grams next time. I always do. But give it a try. See what you think about it. You don't have to use it. Like, again, I'm a big proponent of following the standards or following the parameters that you find best for yourself. Like if you enjoy the coffee at 19 grams, that's awesome. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. Now, I do share with you, like, especially if you're drinking our coffee, or using our coffee, then I'll share with you the idea, the parameters that we designed it for. But, I do realize that, let's say if you're using 21 grams versus 19, you're consuming 2 grams more per shot than you might normally, or especially 3 grams if you're doing 18. So, you're doing it at a faster consumption, but I don't necessarily think you have to, right? Like, if we were, and I provide that just so as people can have a reference point, and so and also we're happy to talk about how we do it in our shops. Like at our shops, we would do it 21 grams, right? But it doesn't mean you have to do it in your home. Oh. George says, I remember the BB version from the Sproastery. This is it. This is the same one. The same one. Yeah, I don't know who copied. I mean, I'm sure Ichiro Sekiguchi came up with this, right? And I don't know I don't know if they were licensed it or what. I mean, of course, I'm sure he designed this decades ago, like probably when I was born or before I was born. So, if there was a patent, it would have been expired a long time ago, I imagine. Nate says, I have that older style Hario kettle in electric version, 800 milliliters. Oh, nice. Pours great, but I haven't had an issue with the inside. Oh, I haven't had any. I have there's a little bit of like buildup in here. I think it's really just more I need to like Cafiza it or OxyClean it. Like I think an OxyClean. Maybe I'll do that today. There's a little bit of buildup, but I haven't used it. We don't use this. I don't use this kettle really anymore. I really use the Hario Fit. Which, it does have a little bit of rustiness going on there. I think there's a little bit of. I'm going to have to clean that up too. Got to do some maintenance on it. Matt Geek says, thank you for demonstrating that pour-over kettle. I think I'll get one like that. Yeah. I mean, and if you can find a place that has them on display, that maybe they'll let you play around with them a little bit to see. Like, I think it's always good to get a feel for it. Get a feel for how do you like the flow. Now, I say that, and I bought all of these without doing that. Like, I bought this because, I'm a fanboy of Cafe del Hombre. So I'm like, I'll buy that. $50, I'll buy that. Or whatever it cost me. It was probably a lot more than that. The copper kettle that I have from them was like crazy expensive. But again, they designed it and had it handmade. So what are you going to do? Naomi says, can you control it better than the fellow version? I think so. But here's the thing. It's like, I'm on a different part of my journey than other people, right? So if I may be able to control the pour better than I could better than a Stag EKG, but that doesn't mean, that really doesn't mean anything, right? Because I've done this tens, maybe 100,000 times, right, over the years. And I've been doing it for over 20 years. So I've got a lot of experience built in I may just be pouring it here like this in the moment, but I've got tons of experience built into that. So it's not necessarily, I can't say that it's a fair comparison to say that, I can just pour it. And I realize that the reason that the Stag EKG can be a great kettle for people is that, those who don't have the experience, they may be prone, like these are easy to be prone to like pouring too much water and losing control. Then you slosh around your slurry too much or whatever, and maybe not get the best results of too much turbulence. So I understand why it exists, right? I just don't buy it because it would just infuriate me because I can control it here, but this level of control takes a lot of practice, so it's kind of, it's just something you have to balance, right? Something you have to balance. Like I don't, if I go to people's houses and they have friend's house and they have the EKG, it's not like I'm like, what are you, some kind of charlatan making coffee? Like, I don't think like that. I just don't want it in my house. I don't want that. If I was to get it, I would want to find out how can I rip that restrictor out of there. Nate says, yes, the restrictor, I generally don't pour more than 10 grams a second, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, and if you're not doing that, and I got to say, like, when I'm telling you that, like, and why I'm saying that is because the very first time that I used the Stag EKG, I was doing a training at a client's place, right? They'd asked me to come in and train their staff on coffee history and how to cup coffees and things like that. And so I was training their staff, and they have a Stag EKG. And the first time I used it, and I got it, we got the whole lineup of coffees, right? And so when you have all these coffees lined up for a cupping, you're going to be pouring, right? You're going to be pouring because you want to get the, when you're pouring for cupping, you want the turbulence to make sure that all of the grounds are fully hydrated. So you pour pretty aggressively for each one, right? And over the years I can pour pretty aggressively and stop without having an overflow. So I just go down the line. Here I am with the Stag EKG, and it's like, and I'm just getting mad because I'm like, time is burning here. Time is burning. Like, we want to try to pour everything close so that the extraction times are not too varying, right? Like, if it takes me, so if I start on one end, let's say there's like 10 cups, and we're doing 4-minute extractions, I'm starting the timer when I start pouring this. I don't want this to be 2 minutes later, right? Maybe that's an exaggeration with the flow rate of the Stag, but that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about when I say that, like, I'm just infuriated by the Stag EKG, and it is and I do realize that my criticism of that is a very narrow kind of criticism. It's very limited. Like, there's very few people that are going to be utilizing the Stag EKG probably in the way that I want to utilize it, or what I'm considering. So I have to be fair to the EKG in that respect, that it's not designed necessarily for people like myself. Although you see a lot of people using them in cafes, but it's not necessarily designed for that. George says, great show. Thanks to everybody for watching, all the input I've got. So, oh, nice. Have a great day. Peter says, I like old school too, but you missed out on some also special coffee and cold. I know, but there's I only have a little bit of time. Like I said, I really wish that I had gone to see the one of my female judges. Now I can't remember her name. Her name's glasses, Chinese girl. Looks like she has an awesome cafe. Like, there's a couple cafes, especially ones that I would love to go see in KL, but I only had one day to go tour around outside of the championship. So I was like, only kopitiams. But next time I go back, like I would like to go back, and then this next time I can go and like hang out for a couple of days and go see more range of shops. Right? Like I saw a lot of what I guess were considered the great kopitiams of KL. Mostly, a lot of them were in Klang. So really, I have more videos of that coming out too. Eventually. Naomi says the chipped off enamel looks like kitty. Does it really? Kitty channels? Oh yeah, you're right. Look at that. I had not noticed that before. Let's have a comparison to our cup here. Oh yeah, nice. Nate says that the main thing I like about the Stag is the scheduling feature. It's nice to come to the office the instant I didn't know they did that. That's a nice thing. I am curious to know, like, and I haven't looked this up, but I'm sure the Stag has this because it's electronic. But they must have a game on it. Like, I like the little games they put on their products. Like, there's a game on here, which I've played once, and I don't remember how to get back to it. And then we played the asteroid type of game on Matt's Aiden. I'm kind of disappointed there's no game on. I get why there isn't, but I'm kind of disappointed there's no like game built into the old Gen 2. That would have been kind of dope. Like, if you had like this. Here, fellow, try this. Build a game so that there is a LCD screen here in the middle of this selector, and then you can pew, 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 like that would be. Not that fellow is watching us. Like, they don't watch us. They don't care. They don't care. Nate says, yes, I think there's a snake type. I think you're right. There is a snake theme. Matt has the Stag, and I think we looked it up one time, which I think it's cool. I think that's cool. I think that's cool features. All right, so it's already been a lot longer than I expect us to run today. So let me go off. I got to go and I've decided it's time to start installing lighting at the new shop. So let me go do that today. Back again tomorrow with another episode of the Coffee Q&A. So hope you have a wonderful day out there or evening, wherever you are, Peter. Good night. Anton and Kent, it's going to be night for you soon. So have a good evening. The rest of you have a wonderful day out there. Back in tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.